Sök up on Zanderhal.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have stumbled upon what looks to be an amazing video in my recommended. YouTube actually pushed a good video in my algorithm, and I could not be happier. I've noticed that my videos are also doing better lately, as is my recommended. Like, I'm just getting better videos recommended to me, while my videos are also doing better. I imagine that is not a coincidence.
Yes, my videos are good. Ay.
So I'm happy to see that things are starting to finally return to normal when it comes to YouTube just fucking over all its creators as of late. And with that, I can proudly say I found a good video essay. At least the bits of it that I saw were pretty good. And the title and thumbnail, damn, they're bangers. Let me tell you. You see, this video is by a smaller channel named Max Morrow. This video's blown up in the last 2 weeks, 26,000 views, pretty big for that 26 times.
What? Wait, how big is that channel?
The channel sub count. That's pretty good. The video is called Trump, Asmongold, and the Danger of Common Sense.
Okay, I'm gonna go to the original video. Asmongold and the Danger. Oh my gosh, this person's smaller than me. It only has 7 videos. Oh, alright.
By the way, am I, do you guys feel the same way? Am I the only person? Because I feel like this is the common sense take to have. Whereas if you're new...
I hate common sense. I hate the term common sense. The most hated term in my vocabulary. Oh my gosh.
You're not going to have that same type of insight. I mean, that's common sense, man. It's such...
What?
If you're new, you're not going to have that same type of insight. I mean, that's common sense, man. It's
Oh no. Asmongold and Danger of common sense politics. When you lack any sort of argumentation, you retreat to common sense. That is what happens. Common sense, common sense, common sense. Common sense is different for everybody. One person's stupidity is another person's common sense. Hold on. I wanna make it clear. Fellas, how do I... No, well. Oh, might as well. Hold on. YouTube. Oh boy, this is gonna be a mess, isn't it? Max. Your channel. Boop. Oof. Oh my god. Critique of President Sunday? I'm here. I'm here for it. Alright, I'm gonna watch it later. Oh my gosh, no, that's politics. Hello, Inkub. Aw, that's sad. Oh well, let's watch some video together as a family.
Like, this is the thing. It's so common sense. Of course they're
True,
gonna think
common
that.
sense.
Obviously, they're going to think that. It's common sense. And so I appreciate, you know, at least standing on common fucking sense. It's on both sides. You don't know? Well, yeah.
True. We need some uncommon sense.
Of course, everybody knows that. It's common sense.
Everybody knows that. I love this. Everybody knows that. It's common sense.
This is a huge victory for,
Common sense.
what do you call it? A huge victory for common sense.
Mm-hmm.
Massive victory for common sense. But to be honest, this is a common sense reality that any reasonable, intelligent person would have come to. It was on his.
Why have any sort of knowledge of expertise when you can have common sense?
Behalf they're getting in
Course.
battles on behalf of common sense. I'm not going to cry a fucking river when people who have genocide that's baked into their laws are getting genocided. Yeah, I mean, it's common sense when you think about it. I don't.
Of course. My favorite slop streamer, Asmon Gold. I mean, it's common sense, isn't it? It's common sense that you like Asmon Gold. It's just common
Give a
sense.
fuck. They're terrible people. It's
True.
not even a question. It's common
Yeah, it's common sense.
sense. Exactly. It's just common sense. They'd be doing the same thing.
Because it's common sense?
This is common sense.
This is common sense.
They're not able to kill as many people as Israel because they don't have as many bombs
True. Common sense.
and as many weapons. But if they did, they'd be doing the same thing. You would need to do this. It's common sense. These people are not your allies. They come from an inferior culture that is horrible. It kills people for their identity and is directly antithetical to everything Western values stand for. And
Including common
it
sense.
is an inferior culture in all ways. Sorry, it's just common sense.
Oh my gosh. I'm not feeling better, but you know, it is what it is. I have to. The show must go on for the sake of all of you lovely people.
Hey guys, Asmongold's biggest fan Max here, and I've been loving two words in politics lately. Common sense. It's always been this sort of
Lately? What do you mean lately? It's always been this empty phrase that people have been throwing around. It's always been here. It's not a recent development. People have always tried to replace any sort of argumentation with common sense. That's always been a thing, unfortunately.
nebulous term which conservatives have
Yeah.
alluding to, but right now in 2025, with God Emperor Trump back in the White House,
Oh yeah, he also says that. I forgot that Trump also appeals to common sense, to the victory of common
its
sense.
usage has exploded. It all started at his inaugural speech on the 20th of January this year, where he declared,
With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense.
Revolution of common sense. It just sounds like I don't know, like
It's all about common sense.
well, okay, I'm not gonna lie, that does sound kinda exciting, so what was step one gonna be in this common sense revolution? Well, 10 days later, when 67 people were killed in a mid-air collision between a passenger plane and military helicopter, Trump was ready to put his plan into action. At a
common
press
sense.
conference addressing the incident with absolutely zero evidence to support him, Trump decided to blame the crash on DEI policies, as apparently there were pilots being hired who had
Severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities.
What? Of course, it's common sense. after all.
That is amazing.
That's right. Even though the investigation had barely begun, Trump's galaxy brain and infinite wisdom had already determined the true cause. Now, when a reporter asked him how he possibly could have come to that conclusion, not
Are we common sense yet? Oh, we haven't even started. It's just 2 minutes, 54 seconds out of 31 minutes. So no, the common sense train has not even... It's not even left the station.
even 24 hours after the crash, Trump simply responded,
Because I have common sense, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't.
True, I have common sense, therefore I know exactly who did it, why they did it, what happened. It was all DEI and mentally handicapped pilots. It's common sense, of course. You can explain anything away like that. You can just say anything. You can just say anything and say, "Oh, why? How did I come to my conclusions? What evidence do I have? Well, I have common sense. Fuck you. I have my common sense. What do you have? You have your wokeness and DEI, and I have common sense on my side." That's right.
wow. And they said the revolution wasn't going to be televised. But okay, that press conference was 6 months ago, and a lot more details about the crash have been released since then. We now know the helicopter had a malfunctioning altimeter, there was a communication breakdown between the pilots, and air control staff failed to deliver vital emergency instructions.
Yeah, so DEI basically, common sense. One again has defeated the woke mob once again.
These were all contributing factors, and although we still have to wait until early next year to get the full report, do you want to know which claim still has zero credible evidence to support it? Yeah, that whole DEI thing Trump said. As it turns
That's not true. You just listed all of the super DEI related things. What do you mean? I'm convinced. Don't you have common sense? This is not a common sense content creator. This is why they have so little subs. This is why Asmongold has, I don't know, 1 billion subs, and this person has like how many? 1.15k subscribers. This person clearly does not know common sense. And neither do I, for that matter, considering my number of subs. I have common sense. Very nice. Very good, very good.
turns out, using your common sense to decipher deeply complex situations like, oh, I don't know, mid-air collisions between aircraft isn't a particularly effective way of arriving at the truth. Yet for some
That's not true.
strange reason, common sense has become this absolute rallying cry for the MAGA movement, and in my estimation,
I mean, yeah, of course, because what else are we gonna rally around? Scientific evidence, logic, actual deductive skills, actual waiting for information to come out? No, of course not. They have to rally it around something vague and something that you could interpret as anything, which common sense fits that bill perfectly. So, of course, that's a rallying cry for the MAGA movement and Trump himself.
it's having a pretty corrosive effect on political discourse. Like, if you want to see the impact of it in real time, look no further than the most popular political streamer in the world right now, and our good friend who happened to feature in the intro to this video.
Oh my god, Asmongold. That's the most famous political streamer in the world. Political streamer. I cannot believe this. I cannot believe all of the opinions of this guy are just so incorrect. His political analysis is basically non-existent. It's all based on common sense, basically. Let's see the comments. Common sense from a gamer who plays 12 hours a day but struggles with any game that has a mild bit of challenge. The trouble with common sense is it tends to make no sense. From elite level gamer to elite level political commentator. There is a culture of ignorance in the United States, and there has always been. Just wait, this guy has political opinions? The dude can't even fathom personal hygiene if people trust he's able to make informed decisions and spread opinions, dude, the guy can't even be physically clean. Why would any of you live and listen to Asmongold? Apparently the most popular political streamer in the world, so apparently there are definitely people that do want to listen to him, so I don't know. I don't know.
Asmongold. It honestly baffles me that one of the most influential voices in online politics right now is a gamer who spends 6 hours a day vomiting out common sense drivel based on cherry-picked Twitter clips and submissions to his own fucking subreddit. We are so unbelievably fucked if that is the scope of our political engagement, but we won't start the Asmongold hate posting just yet. So, fellow truth seekers, come join me on a journey to understand the extremely ideological, dogmatic, and ultimately flawed way of thinking which is holding conservative brains captive. So okay, before we can dive into any of the fun stuff, I think it's first important that we understand what is actually meant by the term common sense. As I alluded to in the intro, it's a pretty nebulous.
It's basically something that comes intuitively. It makes intuitive sense. That's basically what people mean when they say it. It makes sense on first glance. If it seems convoluted or complicated, then it goes against common sense.
Phrase which means different things to different people, and that can make pinpointing an exact definition a little challenging. But with that being said, I think Duncan Watts, a social scientist who has written extensively on this topic, offers us a pretty good starting point. Roughly speaking, common sense is the loosely organized set of facts, observations, experiences, insights, and pieces of received wisdom that each of us accumulates over a lifetime in the course of encountering, dealing with, and learning from everyday situations. Now, there's a lot to unpack there, but I think the most important place to start is the fact that common sense is very intuitive.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Ha! See, it's common sense. I'm a genius. I skipped the long definition. I just went to the meat of it. It's very intuitive. Texan cowboy gamer skills. True. That is true.
And practical by nature. For example, we'd say it's common sense to let everyone out of an elevator before you get in one. It's common sense to look both ways before you cross the road. And it's common sense to say please and thank you when somebody does something for you. These are all things the average person.
There are a lot of people that don't live by this. There are a lot of people that don't say please and thank you when doing things, okay? It's not as common as you
picks
think.
up in their day-to-day life as they observe other people in society complying with these norms. And once you get that type of practical wisdom, it just becomes a subconscious response in the future. You know, once you burn your hand on a hot stove, you hopefully don't have to think too hard about doing it again. And look, in your day-to-day life, I'm not gonna sit here and argue that that isn't a valuable thing to have. There's good reason as to why we associate so many positive connotations with this type of common sense, as the people who have it tend to be sensible, they make good decisions, and they lead stable lives. You know, I don't think we'd have a...
How many of us actually lead stable? Whatever. That's a fairy tale, if I ever heard one. Living a stable life. Imagine that. In this day and age, living a stable life.
functioning society if everybody acted like that one friend who doesn't see a problem with going on 2 a.m. alcohol-fueled side quests with the handful of strangers they just met at a bar. So when we're dealing with our interpersonal lives, common sense is unquestionably a very valuable thing to have, and I think you'd be hard-pressed to find literally anybody who disagrees with that. So okay, if it can be such a good thing, then why am I clowning on our good friend Asmongold and his common sense Israel-Palestine takes? Well, if we loop back
Common sense Israel-Palestine takes.
to that initial definition for a moment, you'll notice two key words at the end there. Everyday situations. Yes.
Yeah, everyday genocide just, I mean, in a way, it does happen every day, but we all encounter genocide every single day.
When we're waiting in line at the shops, taking the bus to work, or eating at a restaurant, we should rely on our common sense to govern our behavior. However, the second we start to scale up those intuitions from one-on-one interactions to, I don't know, government policy aimed at resolving complex issues on a societal level, well, we're gonna run into some pretty significant issues.
Oh yeah. No way. You cannot intuitively solve complex issues? No way. I would never have come to that conclusion.
To get an idea of what I'm talking about here, I want to show you this fantastic clip I found between common sense warrior, man of the people Piers Morgan, and evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins. They were
Oh boy, Richard Dawkins. Okay, there we go. Let's go.
having a discussion about the creation of the universe, and in trying to wrap his head around the Big Bang, Piers asked this.
Well, someone as logical as you are, and I believe you are, you know,
Real transphobe. Richard Dawkins. Real. He employs his own set of common sense. Ironically enough. For being so scientific, he also retreats to common sense when it comes to gender issues. So
you think about this all very logically. A logical mind surely has to appreciate that before the Big Bang, there has to have been something before then. Otherwise, what is nothing?
And hey, that seems like a fair enough question. As someone who also doesn't know jack shit about astrophysics or the creation of the universe, the idea of something coming from nothing feels rather uninteresting.
yeah, Richard Dawkins is a biologist, so I'm not sure why we're discussing astrophysics with him. A scientist is not a jack of all trades that knows everything. Once you get a degree of one type of thing, I guess you're an expert on everything. Brilliant.
So, let's see what Richard Dawkins has to say in response.
Why would he be an expert on that? He's a biologist. I thought his expertise was evolution or something, and not the Big Bang.
Trying to tell you what a physicist would say first of all. They would say that you cannot use the word before for the Big Bang. Time began at the Big Bang. There was no before the Big Bang. I know it's contrary to common sense. Physicists don't necessarily deal in common sense.
Oh my god, did you hear that? Richard Dawkins is suggesting that maybe our intuitions are a little misguided when it comes to something as deeply complex as the creation of the universe itself.
Yeah, because we don't have everything figured out automatically. We're not born pre-programmed with all necessary knowledge to decode the universe, the world, and politics.
Who could have possibly guessed that? Also, as a
Wow.
bit of context, Dawkins does sound a little passive-aggressive here, but that's only because Piers had been interrupting him moments before.
Also, there's the fact that we rely on our senses, and our senses are very limited. There are certain things that we simply cannot perceive with our senses, like the microscopic world, or even for that matter, the very macroscopic world. And so we just cannot intuit certain things. We cannot intuit how atoms work. There's no common sense for how atoms work.
Before.
But whatever it was, it's
But
got
it
to be
has to,
simple.
doesn't it?
You
Just on
cannot
that?
suddenly invoke.
Doesn't it have to?
Anyway, now that Dawkins has highlighted the inaccessibility of this topic for mere laymen, let's see what illuminating response Piers conjures up next.
Well, it makes no sense, does it? And that's what I mean. I think you're a logical man. That cannot make sense to you. The idea that you're not even allowed to use the word before the Big Bang, when every part of both of our brains tells us that that's obviously nonsensical.
You're not allowed. Okay, Piers Morgan is just a stupid person. I cannot believe he's just being a contrarian. He just explained it. He said that the time did not exist before that.
Makes no sense, does it? Wow, thank you, common sense champion Piers Morgan, for making his exact fucking point. Unsurprisingly, the realm of theoretical astrophysics doesn't lend itself to neat little common sense explanations, especially on debate shows where the host is actively seeking confrontation to maximize entertainment value. I think the most telling part about this conversation is the fact that Dawkins preempts it entirely with his initial response.
This is a question for a physicist, not a biologist.
He knows to stay in his
Yes, thank you. Oh my god. Why would you ask that for a biologist?
own
Whatever.
lane from the get-go, and you can see how visibly frustrated he gets as Piers continues to try and poke and prod for an easy explanation which simply doesn't exist. Now obviously, this is more of a scientific example rather than a political one, but I think the general premise still rings true. To put it simply, our intuitions are not to be trusted in the task of deciphering complexity. Now, you may argue that something like theoretical astrophysics is much more abstract than politics and has
Not really. Human relationships, human hierarchies, how they intersect, many different factors that come into play. domestically, not even to mention internationally, different political systems that interplay with one another, economic incentives. Yeah, you can look into it. It's physically impossible.
Has a higher bar to entry, but this could not be further from the truth. When we enter the realm of the social sciences with disciplines like economics, sociology, and politics, we are studying the way in which millions and millions of people interact with one another inside of these massive systems. That introduces a world of complexity which our little peanut brains and its primal intuitions can't even begin to comprehend without a lot of care and nuance. For example, let's take a topic like managing the consequences of climate change. At the heart of this issue is a balancing act between the need to protect and preserve our natural environment with the need to grow the economy. There's a clear
in other words, there's a balance between taking care of the needs, the immediate needs right now, and taking care of the long-term needs of the planet. That's the gist of it.
tension between those two things, which are both very important when it comes to ensuring the prosperity of a nation, and some type of balance
Or the
needs
world,
to be struck between
not just
them.
a
So
nation.
what does that look like in terms of policy? Do you try a carbon tax to make polluting more costly? What effect does that have on inflation for everyday consumers? Might that reduce consumption and therefore stall economic development? Should you give tax credits to businesses which use renewable sources of energies? What about investing more into the research and development of future technologies? Additionally, you also have to consider the international element there is to climate change as well. It's a global problem which requires every nation to pull their weight, but this introduces a free rider problem to the mix. One country may set ambitious targets to reduce the CO2 they emit, whilst another may double down on their emissions to grow their economy more rapidly. That's the exact reason Trump
So in other words, intuition will only take you so far.
withdrew from the Paris Climate Agreement in 2017 as, rightly or wrongly, probably wrongly, he felt as though other nations were taking advantage of the United States and their efforts to reduce emissions.
He doesn't even believe that the climate change is real, does he? Didn't he call it a hoax? With that quoted, Richard Dawkins sounds literally like a character out of the Red Dwarf show. Oh, I like that show. I'm surprised you know it. I do like the Red Dwarf. Interesting. Interesting. You're a man of culture, Vladimir. To know the Red Dwarf.
Emissions. I mean, fuck, just look at this 2012 banger from the Don on Twitter. The concept of global warming was created by and for the
There you go. There you go. I told you he didn't even believe in it. I told you. I was right. I'm being provided evidence in real time. Thank you. I was thinking about looking it up, but you know what? I've been provided quotes by this fine video creator. Just for that, I'm gonna click like on this video. Just for providing me with quotations for my convenience.
Chinese in order to make US manufacturing non-competitive. And look, that's barely even scratching the surface when it comes to climate
It makes common sense, doesn't it? That China would just manufacture a story about a global crisis to make America uncompetitive. It just makes so much common sense. Perfect sense to me.
climate change and its implications, and can you see how much you have to know just to start to even understand the complexity at play here? There are so many different disciplines intersecting when it comes to these issues with their own respective experts and academics who've spent their entire lives educating themselves, and personally, I don't think your baseline level intuitions hold a candle to that level of complexity. You know,
I don't know. I feel like I can do it. I can do it with my common sense. I think I have a pretty solid head on my shoulders, and I feel like I can do it. I feel like at least my few viewers that are watching me right now believe in me in that regard. I feel like I have your support. Do I have your support?
when one nation, a far-right party here in Australia, has a page on their website labeled Net Zero Common Sense, it kind of has me scratching my head because I don't really understand which part of anything we just talked about could be properly understood through the lens of common sense. That's
Everything. Everything can be understood by a lens of common sense. If your intuition is trained like mine is.
type of language is massively reductive and dismisses any level of nuance which political issues like climate change absolutely.
Nuance is for pussies and for cowards. Nuance blocks you from doing the necessary decisions.
demand. All right, I hope everyone enjoyed that entree of climate change.
Oh my God! Look at this glass. I've got this. I've got the same glass at home. Oh my gosh! Look at that. Wow. I like this creator now. I've got the same glass.
Because it's now time to get to the mouth-watering main course of immigration. This is one of the most polarizing.
Oh no! Immigration. Oh crap! It makes so much common sense that when people come to a country from another country, that means an invasion, and they all want to steal your jobs and replace your culture.
Polarizing issues in global politics today, and it's a place where we see a lot of painful fucking discourse. To get an idea of what I'm talking about, let's run through some of the common sense talking points you'll hear from a conservative. Illegal.
Oh my gosh. Oh wow, I just said that one. Whoa. Maybe I have more common sense than I thought. Oh damn. Ooh.
Immigrants are stealing jobs from native-born workers. They reduce the wages of work.
We can also create jobs, but that's neither here nor there.
Working class people, as they're willing to
Data does not bear that out.
work for less money, and they drive up house prices because they need somewhere to stay. I think
That does not necessarily bear out
that's a
either.
fair representation, and I loosely based it off something Trump said at his State of the Union address all the way back in 2019.
Meanwhile, working class Americans are left to pay the price for mass illegal immigration. Reduced jobs, lower wages, overburdened schools, hospitals that are so crowded you can't get in, increased crime.
Yeah, that's why Trump decided to bankrupt hospitals through the... What is the current government shutdown over again? Oh yeah, putting the costs on local hospitals, which will force them to shut down. Thank you.
And a depleted social safety net.
And this also
That's a common talking point in Europe as well. There's even a common talking point about Ukrainian people in Poland, even though Ukrainian people put more into the Polish economy than they take out. But that is a common talking point indeed.
happens to be something our good friend Asmongold has talked about on his stream too.
And you're also taking those jobs away from citizens that are here. And also, yeah, good point.
It's this is affirmative action all over again, I guess.
Where do they live? Well, they live in houses. Well, okay, well, we have people that don't have houses that are in the country now. Well, what the fuck? Like, I mean, it's just, this is not even a question.
And look, I think it's safe to say that the vast majority of conservatives agree with some form of this logic that we've seen from both Trump and Asmongold. There is a limited pool of resources, whether it be jobs, government welfare, or housing, and illegal immigrants / mass migration puts a strain on those resources, which negatively affects everybody in the country. On its surface, this feels like it could be a plausible common sense take, but unfortunately, these claims are either 1, outright incorrect, or 2, so misleading to a point which is downright deceitful. So, to get a better idea of the complexity which underpins an issue like immigration, let's take a deeper look point by point. We'll start with the jobs argument first. Conservatives are 50% correct when they say immigrants are taking jobs from native-born workers, but they're ignoring the other half of that equation. Now, hopefully this isn't too much of a shock, but it actually turns out that migrants have to sustain their own existence in the exact same way that a native-born citizen does.
No way. No. Really?
That means buying food for their families, paying rent to live somewhere, and purchasing a whole host of goods and services, which brings an additional level of consumption to the economy, which wouldn't otherwise exist. As a result, businesses have to start producing more stuff due to this extra economic activity, and would you look at that, we're creating new job opportunities.
Wow. So, as I said before, just moments before, immigrants can also create new jobs. Wow. Must lay outside, baby. Let's go. True.
This is something economists have known for a while, and this misconception even has a name: the lump of labor fallacy. It's wrong to think of an economy as a fixed pie in which there's a finite amount of work to be done and you're fighting with other people to get your share. No.
True. That is such a ridiculous... Oh my goodness.
They're much more fluid than that, and the amount of work to be done scales with the level of economic activity and production. For example, when women began entering the workforce in the 1960s, there was a big fear that they'd be taking jobs away from men. I mean, think about it. If you're about to have millions of people flood the labor force, surely that has to come at the expense of male employment, right? Well, no, actually. More people working meant more people earning money and consuming, which meant the economy began growing, which meant more jobs were being created. Just take a look at the rates of employment for men and women aged between 25 and 54 over the last 60 years. Now sure, there has been a slight decrease in male employment over time from 92% to 86%, but as economist Paul Krugman notes, this is due to a decline in manufacturing and other industries which have been lost thanks to globalization. And this is the same thing we view when it comes to immigration, and it's proven by study after study after study. I mean, hell, if you look at the US...
Studies are not common sense. Studies are rigged and woke. Studies are part of the woke mob agenda. Don't get out of here with your studies. Studies are for pussies as well.
Specifically, immigrants...
Studies. Uh-oh. Hold on. I'll be right back. Study this. Study this, and we'll see who cancels who. Oh, I'm dizzy. But it makes common sense, because I'm ill. If I'm ill, I'll be dizzy. That's common sense.
are 80% more likely to start a business compared to their native counterparts.
Yep, especially if given the opportunity, if given the easy legal route to opening a business or even finding a job. The Ukrainian refugees have been a great example of that in Poland. A great boon to the economy, which people don't seem to
higher
believe.
levels of overall employment than there otherwise would be, which is supported by some of the latest research too. Now, if you want to go into the gritty details, you could argue that immigration does displace workers in the immediate short term, but that's not the type of nuance people are wanting to work with when they're chanting, immigrants are stealing our jobs. So yeah, this is the first common sense take, which doesn't hold up to scrutiny. Now, wages are a slightly more complicated story. If we're using the basic economic theory of supply and demand, then we'd expect to see wages to fall when there's an influx of new labor in the economy thanks to migration, but this isn't really reflected in the empirical evidence. If we take a look at this meta-analysis from 2024, which pulls together 42 different studies, they conclude that immigration's effect...
Meta-analysis? Oh my god. The controlled political analysis ordered probably by the far left and paid for by the far left. And you believe that? Oh my gosh.
On wages is close to zero and often not statistically significant. This older meta-analysis from 2010 found something similar, with the wage and employment effects of an immigration shock being very small. Or here, a study from the Reserve Bank of Australia in 2019 found that we typically do not see large effects of immigration on wages, and the effects these studies do find are often positive. And again, one final meta-analysis from 2014 concluded that most estimates are small and, on average, essentially zero. Now, this is obviously a little reductive to the nuances here, as immigration and its effect on the economy is extremely context dependent. For example, that RBA study I mentioned earlier found that immigration was actually helping to reduce inequality here in Australia. Because our immigration policy favors high-skilled labor, that increases the level of competition around high-skilled job openings, which was found to slightly reduce those wages whilst disproportionately increasing the wages of low-skilled workers. Therefore, in an Australian context, we actually found that immigration had a positive effect on the wages of working-class people. Now, to be clear, that seemed to be more of an isolated example from what I was able to read, so let's hone in on the general consensus here. At worst, immigration has a slightly deflationary effect on the wages of working class people, but this is massively outweighed by the benefits it provides to the economy more generally. And hey, as someone who actually cares about the material conditions of the working class...
Oh, communist, commie-socialist. Now I see why this person's against common sense. It's a communist, evil person. Material conditions of the working class. I see.
That's an important caveat. In fact, I'd say that's a great political discussion to be had, as we should redistribute the economic gains of immigration such that everyone is better off in society, but...
Oh no. Communist talk.
Do you really think that's the level of nuance you're going to get from a political commentator like Asmongold?
Yes, of course, because he knows common sense, unlike you.
My common sense says no. So yes, whilst...
Oh, now you depend on your common sense, hypocrite.
Immigration can cause a negligible decrease in the wages of working class people,
Hypocrite.
though not always
Animal liberation. Ugh.
and can sometimes actually increase them. This downside is massively overblown by critics and fails to consider the enormous benefit which immigrants provide to the economy more generally. Now, thirdly and finally, I want to touch on the claim Asmongold made about housing, as no, immigrants are definitely not the issue here. This is probably the misconception which annoys me the most as an Australian, because we are experiencing the literal worst housing crisis in the world right now, and
Oh yeah, I am familiar. I am familiar.
people love to use immigration as an easy scapegoat. I actually made a video on this topic earlier in the year, but the idea that migrants are to blame for housing unaffordability is a complete red herring which ignores the true structural issues at play. Here in Australia, current planning restrictions prevent medium and high density dwellings from being built. There's a criminal lack of public housing. We have awful tax incentives in place which make real estate a stupidly profitable investment, and there's a shortage of labor and supplies to actually build houses in the first place. These are the predominant issues at the heart of the housing crisis, not which make real estate a stupidly profitable investment, and there's a shortage of labor and supplies to actually build houses in the first place. These are the predominant issues at the heart of the housing crisis, not immigration. In fact, when 49 leading economists were asked to pick their preferred solution, only 6% of them said to restrain immigration, the third lowest response overall. Now, of course, more people coming into a country is going to increase the level of demand for housing, and nobody is denying that. However, to treat that as the foremost factor in housing unaffordability is delusional, as you could literally halt all immigration tomorrow, and guess what? We'd still have a housing crisis because of those other structural issues we mentioned earlier. Now, obviously, I'm talking about an Australian context here, but a lot of these points ring true for an American one as well. There is
A lot. In Poland, it's the rule of the companies that build the housing.
consensus amongst US economists that immigration is not one of the major factors driving house prices, and in fact, because so many migrants who move to the country are construction workers, they're probably having an outsized effect on the supply of housing rather than the demand. And, just like Australia, restrictive zoning laws and high construction costs have resulted in a housing shortage, and soaring mortgage rates have made things completely unaffordable. So when a Republican senator like Carrie Lake says it's just basic common sense, these people have to live somewhere, and this is basic supply and demand, they are being deliberately obtuse to the actual issues at play here. I mean,
True.
come on, look no further than the early stages of COVID back in 2020. Even when international
Oh, COVID in Australia. I guess we're gonna listen to how COVID was handled in Australia.
travel was non-existent, property prices in most developed nations absolutely skyrocketed, despite the flow of migrants halting entirely. So although immigration is certainly a demand-side factor when it comes to house prices and rent, it's often used as a red herring to distract you from the true structural causes which are actually to blame for housing unaffordability. So would you look at that? When we break down the common sense arguments against immigration, they turn out to be either 1, categorically incorrect, or 2, intentionally misleading or massively overblown. Now, the funny thing is, after everything I just said, I wouldn't blame you for thinking I'm some globalist, pro-mass immigration, lefty loony, but
True, commie. You're a commie. No common sense in your head.
that simply isn't the case. There's
Oh, you're a right winger.
obviously
Okay.
going to be a level of
You.
immigration which is detrimental to both the person who wants to move to a country and the native citizens who are already there. And I don't want that. But that's not really my main point here. Just like that one really annoying math teacher you had in 7th grade who insisted that you showed you're working when you solve an equation, I'm concerned with the process people are using to arrive at their political convictions, or more accurately, the lack thereof. When your understanding of the world is merely a pastiche of Twitter hot takes and Reddit clips
Uh-oh.
woven together with your deeply flawed intuitions, well, that's how you end up going off the deep end, ranting that Palestinians deserve to be genocided. And
Well, he is the most popular political streamer, so it resonates. His common sense resonates with what people want to hear, I guess.
on that note, actually, the scariest thing about a political commentator like Asmongold is that he doesn't seem to care that this is his process of arriving at the truth. When someone in his chat directly challenged him over the fact that he doesn't seem to do any research to arrive at his political beliefs, this is how he responded.
No, you think and feel a lot. I've never seen you actually do some research. Why would I need to do research? I already know it. Yeah, I just come to
Why would I need to do research? I already know it, of course. Of course, it's common sense. I already intuited it. My intuition told me what I need to know. Why would I need to do research? Biggest political commentator in the world. Oh God. Why would I need to do research? I already know it.
The conclusions. And then they're right. Pretty much every single time.
At first, I thought he was joking here and actually laughed because, based alert, who the fuck needs to do research when you're always right? But then he continues.
Like, if it's such a bad idea to do that, then why do I keep coming out with positive outcomes? You really think that all these people coming from countries that have totally different laws and the ways that they treat women over there, you really think that there's not going to be an increase in bad behavior in that area? Especially when there's no vetting properly to make sure the ones that are acting in good faith or not? You don't need to have statistics for that. It's common sense. Like,
Yeah, of course. It's all common sense. It's all common sense, folks.
You don't need to see 50 different studies to know if you put a wolf in a cage with 10 rabbits, there's not going to be 10 rabbits by the end of the day. I don't need to have like 50 fucking...
Yeah, politics is like putting a wolf with rabbits. That's the level of complexity we're dealing with here. Immigration is just putting a wolf with 10 rabbits. Thank you.
Studies of this. I don't need to have a million levels of data and representation for it. It's common fucking a priori knowledge that every single reasonable person knows.
Of course, every single reasonable person has in-depth knowledge on how immigration affects populations. Of course.
It's just the way it is.
Oh my god, he wasn't fucking joking. This is the most influential political streamer in the world, and this is unironically what he thinks about academia. The situation he just described of how cultures can potentially...
Oh, God. Vladimir says, I don't know, Asman, probably because of God gamer roles. LMAO. True. God gamer roles. That is
When
true.
people immigrate is quite literally the purpose of studies and why they're so useful. Like seriously, conducting a natural experiment around a population that experiences an increase of immigrants and analyzing the consequences of that sounds like the single most useful thing you could have to have a more informed opinion on this topic. I know that's a little...
Why? Why would you learn studies when you have a priori knowledge that comes with your inborn common sense?
different to watching one video of an anti-immigration protest in the UK and basing your worldview on that, but unfortunately, a study like this would be a much more accurate representation of reality. Dismissing the possibility that a study could be useful here by going, oh, actually, if you put a wolf in the cage, it's gonna eat a rabbit, it's gonna eat a rabbit. And then using your common sense is like actually so insane, I'm kinda at a loss for words. I mean, come on, just look at where his common fucking a priori knowledge got him last time when we were talking about the economics of immigration. He was comically uninformed on its effect on housing and outright wrong when he said that immigrants are stealing jobs. Like, holy shit, if your intuitions are leading you to these blatantly false conclusions and you're embracing anti-intellectualism, why the fuck should your political opinion hold literally any weight? These issues demand...
Because he has a huge audience and he was an elite, cool World of Warcraft gamer, and that means something. That means people want to listen to him. Plus, he's a relatable bloke. Here you go.
So much more care and nuance than he's giving them, and I will never be able to comprehend how this guy is actually the most influential political streamer in the world today. With almost all my Asmongold hate posting out the way, there's one final point I'd like to discuss when it comes to common sense politics.
Rode microphone. I need one as well. Please go to my throne.
That's actually the one which inspired this video in the first place. It's all to do with context. And to understand what I'm getting at, just consider this for a moment. Back in 1988 in the United States, it's estimated that support for same-sex marriage was just 11%, which means the overwhelming majority of people did not want that right extended to homosexual couples. Yet, if we fast forward 37 years to 2025, things have completely flipped on their head, with support now sitting at 68% in the United States.
Common sense.
We'll ignore the fact that Republican support has declined from a peak of 55% in 2022 to 41% in 2025, because that's besides the point here. And I mean, hell, why stop at 1988? Back in 1779, Thomas Jefferson tried to reduce the maximum punishment for sodomy from death to just castration, but it was
Jesus Christ. Oh my God.
rejected by the Virginia legislature. Now, if people were literally willing to kill others for having gay sex, what does that say about the common sense on homosexuality? homosexuality in the
Hold
18th
on.
sex, rejected by the Virginia legislature. Now, if punishment for sodomy
From death to just castration, whoever shall be guilty of sodomy with a man shall be punished, if a man by castration, if a woman by cutting.
death to just castration, but it was rejected by the Virginia legislature. Now, if people were literally willing to
Oh
kill
my
others
goodness.
for having gay sex, what does that say about the common sense
Mhm.
take on homosexuality in the 18th century? In fact,
Holy
I
shit,
can
that's common
almost guarantee
sense.
you that there was
Bro.
some Asmongold equivalent back then writing op-eds in the Boston Times about how sodomy is an unnatural perversion of the sexual act, and anyone with common sense would know that since the writings of Thomas Aquinas in the late 13th century. And there's also another example I want to look at. In the first chapter of Ha-Joon Chang's book, The 23 Things They Don't Tell You About Capitalism, he raises an interesting point about the evolving definition of the free market through time. He uses the example of the Cotton Factories Regulation Act of 1819 in Britain, where the government sought to ban the employment of young children under the age of 9 due to how dangerous the working conditions were for them. And, as insane as it may sound to us today, this stirred up
That's not common sense. If you can work, you should work, okay? Children here for the minds makes perfect common sense to
a
me.
massive controversy at the time, as critics thought it undermined the very idea of a free market. Because we're 2
There
centuries
you go.
removed from that situation, I think we'd all agree that the use of child labor is a moral abomination, but for someone
No.
living through the
No, please use common sense. If you can get more people into the working market, why shouldn't you? The children yearn for the minds, I just said.
Industrial Revolution, well, if a child voluntarily enters the agreement and they want the money and are willing to do the work, who are you to tell them that they can't? Just like the treatment
Exactly.
of queer people throughout history, this just highlights how our sensibilities are bound by the time and context we exist in, and that's really important to remember. Fuck, I just realized that kind of sounds like a Kamala Harris quote, and I'm sorry that it does.
You exist in the context
of all in which you live and what came before you.
By definition, our common sense is anchored to the present moment. It's informed by whatever the current societal and cultural norms are, and this tends to make people's intuitions a passive endorsement of the status quo as a byproduct. Although this can be problematic when it comes to something like the treatment of gay people before the year like 2010, it also does have the power for good. As long as they don't grow up in one of those freakish Republican households which are actively regressing, they're not gonna have to think twice about the issue of same-sex marriage. They'll learn it's a right which is constitutionally protected, they'll see queer characters in the media they consume, and they'll undoubtedly have friends and family who openly express their sexuality too. The world they're growing up in has, maybe not completely, but greatly normalized the existence of queer people, and that is going to inform their intuitions on the matter. It just makes you think, how are future generations going to reflect on our common sense views of the present day? Like, in the same way we condemn our forefathers for shit like slavery and colonialism, I just wonder what we're normalizing in society right now, which my great-great-great-great-great-grandson is going to look back and criticize us for. Perhaps the developed world's inaction on global poverty, how long it's taken us to get our
Your great-great-great-great-grandson is gonna criticize you for abandoning common sense.
shit together on climate change, or my personal bet, I think it'll be the absolute atrocity that is factory farming, but we won't talk about that for the 3rd video in a row. To put ourselves into the shoes of future generations, or to step back at least with some degree of impartiality, which acknowledges our place in history, only gives us more clarity in the way we approach today's issues. In fact, this line of thinking kind of reminds me of this one banger quote that there is from MLK. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Given
We'll see. Sometimes I doubt it. Sometimes I doubt it. It feels, intuitively it feels to be, it makes common sense that it bends towards justice, but I am not always so certain looking how things are progressing.
the trajectory of human history and how we've tended to improve things over time, with a few hiccups along the way, it would seem
Yeah, a few hiccups.
safe to assume that a handful of our common sense attitudes of today are flawed in ways we can't even conceptualize yet. Obviously, it's impossible to predict the future and know what we're wrong about, but I think that's exactly why we should bring some skepticism and open-mindedness to the societal norms we embrace today. To think we have
No way.
everything figured out at this exact point in history when the light bulb was only made like 146 years ago feels a little bit optimistic to me. Ultimately,
Sure, we've got nothing figured out. Alright.
today's common sense was yesterday's revolution, and to think we don't have some more revolutions coming up in the future, whether they be philosophical, technological, or just outright violent conflict, would be a little bit naive, to say the very least. So, where does that all leave us? Well, the first thing I want to clarify after everything I've said here is, no, I'm not endorsing a technocracy here. If you don't know, a technocracy is basically a system of government where society is run by a handful of technical experts, and no, fuck that, I love me some representative democracy. Although I am obviously critical of people who take a common sense approach to politics, I don't mean to suggest that the discussion of these issues should be restricted to just academics and technical experts. I think it should be everyone's democratic responsibility to discuss these contentious topics.
Yeah, but at least try to engage. Try to engage intellectually while you discuss these topics. Don't just intuit everything and treat it as fact. Especially when you're a huge political pundit that has thousands upon thousands of people watching you daily.
But when we do so, there just needs to be a higher level of critical engagement. To quote an article written by Barbara Leckie, common sense is the comfort food of thinking, and if you want to arrive at some version of the truth, then you gotta put the work in. Keep an open mind, challenge your own viewpoints, read a book or two on a topic you find interesting, skim over some studies.
Oh, I gotta read some books. I've been called out. Where my book at? I got some books here. I got some cool books in here.
And then partake in a bit of intellectual sparring. Like, I just find it so utterly horrifying that there's a large portion of people whose only engagement with the realm of politics is watching fucking Asmongold clips on YouTube. At that point, you're basically just one of those prisoners Plato wrote about in the allegory of the cave, watching shadows flicker on a wall, believing that to be the true nature of reality. To wrap up my hate posting on Asmongold here, I initially planned to make a joke about whether or not he's even read a book in his life before, but it turns out he already answered that question when reacting to a video on stream back in July.
No way. No way. Has he never read a book? Oh my god. Okay, let's see.
Read books. I don't.
They're a waste of time.
Of course. Oh my god. This man has 36,000 hours in World of Warcraft, by the way. I don't read books, they're a waste of time. Oh my goodness. And people criticized me when I roasted Asmongold's Ukraine takes. Oh my god. Hello, random spooky 3PO. Spooky girl 3PO. Oh my goodness. Holy moly.
He went on to justify this by saying that he actually does read for hours a day, but I'm not sure if r/Asmongold and your Twitter timeline count in the same way that reading a book does. Anyway, I'm sure there are some common sense assumptions baked into my worldview, which are misguided and incorrect, but that's why I always try to keep an open mind, sometimes to a fault. We've all got blind spots, try to be aware of them, do your research, and just have a solid foundation for your own political beliefs and convictions. Anyway though, I think that's everything I have to say about common sense. I did
Brilliant video. Thank you. That was nice. Subscribe to this person, Max Morrow. Very nice video. Let's see the comments. Let's see some more comments. I think some of the things Asmongold says are agreeable. Yeah, because they make common sense. The problem is when he attempts to attribute his own logic to all other phenomena he doesn't study and his sheep believe. How much money you want to bet he won't watch this video because you're watching a video that factually proves you wrong to you, and unfortunately brainwashed audience would be bad for him, for his common sense. Bringing in mass amounts of immigration is not left-wing. It breaks societal cohesion and services and depletes the third world of educated or young workers. Yeah. It's just common sense is just it's just not a replacement for any sort of argumentation. When you lack any sort of logical argumentation, you can just say it's common sense and leave it at that and just call it a day. Times Radio. Jesus. Uh-oh, Russian media monitor. Hold on. Andrei Lugovoy talks about undermining America in Europe. Russian experts disagree whether Trump will send Tomahawks missiles to Ukraine. Olga Skabiva is pessimistic about Tomahawk. I see that is a big topic. Apti Aludinov says Tomahawk missiles can bring back 2 billion dead Ukrainians. 2 billion? Wait, what? 2 billion Ukrainians died? Am I crazy? What happened? How did 2 billion Ukrainians die? When did that happen? Oh my god. Oh my gosh. I had no clue. 2 billion Ukrainians. Well, I'm interested. General Apti Aludinov is joining us live. He is an aide to the head of the Chechen Republic. Chechen Republic. The place that basically is just part of Russia. The Chechen Republic. Totally a separate and independent state. The commander of the Akhmat Special Forces. Hero of the Russian Federation, because of course, the hero of the Russian Federation. Hello, Apti Aronovich. Good evening, Zenia. Here is what should be said in this instance. While we're waiting with bated breath, I want to know what should be said in this instance about the 2 billion. I want to know the calculus for this claim. The first issue is that for the satanic West. Oh yeah, I forgot. I forgot that the rhetoric has at some point shifted from the West being Nazis to the West being satanic, turning away from religion, turning to degeneracy, LGBT, and other depravities that should be protected by the traditional culture of Russia. So the West is satanic. Just forgot for a hot second that was the rhetoric. Satanism. There are no norms. They just all have butt sex all day. That used to be considered conventional for all nations. Exactly. Why can't homosexualism be persecuted like normal, like it used to be? In this instance, this proves once again that we're at war not with Ukraine, but with degeneracy. But in reality, with the satanic West. This is a general. This is a general saying these things. They would arrest me in the Chechen Republic. I'd be in jail right now, rotting, or even probably dead at this point. I'd be double jailed for all the depraved things that I'm doing. No mercy for me.
Реально с сатанинским Западом. Это очень важно,
This is very important because as of today,
потому что сегодня окончательно снята
the last mask has been taken off, so to speak. What was the last mask of the satanic West? I want to know. I would like to know what the last mask was.
последняя маска, как говорится, с лица
Yes,
вот этого
tell me. From the face of the satanic West.
сатанинского Запада. Теперь второе.
Secondly, during these 3.5 years,
За эти 3,5 года мы знаем, что в Украине
we know that very large sums of money, satanic money has been pumped into Ukraine in order to spread the degeneracy. Is that right? Is that what happened?
было влито очень большие
Have been poured into Ukraine. Okay. I want to know why. I want to know the purpose of pouring this huge amounts of money. Is it to spread satanic degeneracy and butt sex?
суммы, значит, денег, и это вот
Hundreds upon hundreds of billions of dollars.
сотни и сотни миллиардов долларов. Эти деньги не
This money won't change anything.
поменяют ничего, потому что какие бы
Because regardless of
деньги
money
не давались украинским
given to the Ukrainian
формированиям,
formations,
на сегодняшний день
they are currently incapable of doing
они
anything.
не в состоянии
That is one way of, I don't know, that is one interpretation of events.
сделать что-либо, чтобы это
That would lead to any cardinal changes on the front. I mean, Russia's not really able to do anything that would lead to any cardinal changes on the front either. So,
могло привести к каким-то
and Russia is supposedly the bigger, more better country. So,
кардинальным изменениям на фронте. Мы с вами слышим,
we heard that they're giving Ukraine
что Украине дают там
some kind of tomahawk weapons. Oh, the general that does not know what tomahawk missiles are. They're great. That is
какие-то
amazing.
вооружения, томагавки уже. Я так думаю,
I think that out of everything they've already
что
had,
уже из всего, что у них было, они еще
they haven't given them only nuclear weapons. That is some of the stupidest things I've ever heard. Ah, yes, Ukraine was given everything. Ukraine was given top of the line equipment. Ukraine is flying F-35s in the sky as we speak, of course. Ukraine was given everything, just not nukes. Russian propaganda, Russian media is just full of silliness. But this is a professional soldier. This is a general.
им не дали ядерного оружия. Но
Once again, I'd like to ask everyone
опять же хочется всех попросить прийти к осознанию
to come to the realization
того, что Запад не
that the West won't calm down until we defeat them. Russia wants peace so bad. Russia really wants to come to the negotiating table and end this war. The satanic West will not stop until we defeat them. That is the language of peace. That is the language of reconciliation.
успокоятся до тех пор, пока мы их не победим. То есть либо
Either we defeat them or they will defeat us.
мы их, либо они нас. И думать о том, что
Also, we shouldn't think that it will be easy for
нам
us.
будет легко, нам
No way.
не
Really?
надо. Поэтому все
Therefore, overall, all of this
это в
demonstrates
совокупности говорит о том, что нам с вами предстоит
that a lot of work is still ahead of us.
еще огромная работа. Эту работу
We will bring this work to a logical
мы
conclusion.
доведем до логического конца. Ресурса у нашей
Our country has sufficient resources.
страны достаточно. Я так думаю,
I think that in the end, we will hold Europe
что
accountable
мы в конечном итоге спросим с
for our assets as well.
Европы за эти наши активы
They will give them back to us.
тоже, и они их вернут нам. Но это мы их
We will make them do it by force This will also happen. This is such power fantasy bullshit, wet dream incarnate. Oh yeah, we will beat them all. We will just take what's ours. We will defeat the degenerate satanic West and teach them a lesson with our super mega military might. We will arrest all the gays while we were at it.
сделать силой. Это тоже будет.
Обтяранча вы упомянули
You mentioned tomahawks.
не могу не спросить и об этом.
I have to ask you about this.
Рассматривается, это
Various sources in the US confirm
источники в Соединенных
that it's under consideration.
Штатах. Вариант передачи этих
The possibility of delivery
действительно мощных, серьезных
of these serious, powerful missiles to Kyiv regime.
ракет киевскому режиму, что это может изменить наш...
What can it change? What can it impact? Absolutely nothing.
Что повлияет?
Жень,
Zenya, I've known you for a long
мы с
time,
тобой уже знакомы давно, и на эти темы тоже
and we have been discussing these topics for years. You've been discussing Tomahawk missiles being given to Ukraine for years.
говорим уже не первый год. Ну, дадут
So they will give them 100 or even 200 tomahawks.
им еще, там, скажем, сотню, даже 200 этих томагавков.
What will it change?
Что это
I mean, alongside with the intelligence about Russian energy infrastructure, it could change a lot, actually.
поменяет? Да, они нанесут
Yes, they will conduct strikes against our civilians. No, they will not waste missiles to conduct strikes against Russian civilians. They will, however, conduct strikes against Russian energy infrastructure, especially if they're given detailed intel about it.
удары по нашим мирным жителям. Опять
They will again start to do
начнут
everything
делать все для того, чтобы вызвать
to prompt an outrage of our citizens domestically.
возмущение у наших граждан внутри.
Yeah, because it's definitely Ukraine attacking Russian civilians and not the Russian armed forces bombing Ukrainian cities every single day. All the missiles that I hear overhead and the drones, those are just my imagination.
Страны, да, вся их основная
Their main work is aiming exactly at
работа,
this.
она нацелена именно на это. Но ни в коем случае
These strikes certainly aren't designed to
их
stop
вот
us
эти вот удары, они не нацелены на то,
on the front lines. Yeah, this absolutely not. Targeting Russian energy infrastructure definitely is not designed to stop people at the front line. It definitely is not designed to cripple Russia's war machine. Vladimir says, DEI policies won't save Ukraine, Lucy, but you know what can? Battalions of trans gamers, drone pilots. True. That is true. That is true. If I drained, that is true. You laugh, but I think I've seen. I've read an interview with a trans drone pilot. I'm not sure if they were a gamer necessarily, but I've definitely read an interview with a trans drone pilot
чтобы нас остановить на
on the front lines.
Так они же не могут.
They can't stop us by using these weapons.
С применением этого вооружения нас остановить. Вот
This is the bottom line.
сама суть. Поэтому как раз
That's why I'm saying, as I've said it before, I don't know. I think crippling the economy by which Russia funds its war machine is a pretty effective way of stopping what's happening at the front line. Color me, maybe it goes against common sense, but you know what? There's a little something tells me that might be a contributing factor to consider.
раз я и говорю, заранее
That's why I'm saying, as I've said it
я
before,
уже озвучил, что вот
Now they will give them
Сейчас им
tomahawks.
дадут томагавки.
Since they started talking
Если
about
они
them,
про них заговорили, верьте, они их 100%
you better believe they will give it to them 100%.
им дадут. Теперь вопрос.
Now here is a question. What will they change? I mean, if they effectively hit if they are able to effectively hit the Russian energy infrastructure, it could change quite a lot, actually. It could be at least a noticeable factor.
Что они поменяют? Вот дали им
Let's say they gave them tomahawks
дали они им эти 140
and 140 billion euros.
миллиардов евро. Вопрос.
Can they revive nearly 2 billion dead Ukrainians? How? What? 2 billion dead Ukrainians? What did he say in Russian? What the fuck? 2 billion dead Ukrainians?
Они могут оживить уже приближающиеся к 2-миллиардной цифре украинцев.
He actually said 2 billion.
Которые уже погибли? Нет. 2-миллиардной цифре украинцев уже...
This is a general. He actually said 2 billion Ukrainians died. What a huge nation. But went from 2 billion to roughly 40 million. It's insane. Insane genocide happening.
Приближающиеся к 2-миллиардной цифре украинцев, которые уже погибли.
No, 2 billion Ukrainians cannot be revived.
Нет. Они могут...
Can they make new ones? No.
Стругать, но...
I mean, they can't make new ones, actually. It's called when mommy meets dad, whatever. Let's just move on.
Новых нет. Ну, вот...
So this is an issue.
Встает вопрос. Они ведут войну.
They are waging war until the last Ukrainian. Oh my God, I heard this argument on the West from the leftists.
До последнего украинца задались целью.
This is their goal, and they are carrying out the
И
tasks
выполняют те задачи, которые они поставили перед
they've set for themselves.
собой. Мы же...
This sounds especially horrible when Russia does this argument. Oh, they're fighting the war to the last Ukrainian. As for us, until now, we've been working
В
with
свою
them.
очередь, получается, до сих пор вели с ними работу, максимально пытаясь
Trying to preserve their infrastructure to the max. Yeah, especially when you hit the energy infrastructure, especially in 2024, when there was no electricity all the time, especially when you bomb cities every single day. Yeah, you're trying to preserve Ukrainian infrastructure to the max. Oh, and you attack hospitals, kindergartens, maternity wards, schools, the subway. Yeah, just preserving the infrastructure to the max.
сохранять даже их инфраструктуру. Сегодня мы тоже
Now we started to fight against the Ukrainian junta.
начали полноценно воевать, как положено, с украинской хунтой.
The way we should.
Ну и, конечно,
Of course, we have to understand that at the end,
понимать, что в конечном итоге вполне
we will also have to calm down Ukraine's neighbors.
так получится, что
Oh, like Poland?
нам придется еще и успокаивать соседей Украины тоже. Они тоже,
I think they will also get involved, although
я так думаю, втянутся, и хотя они давно
they've gotten involved in this conflict a long ago.
уже втянулись в этот конфликт. Будем делать все, что мы
We will do everything we have to.
должны. А что они им дадут,
Whatever they give them
поменяет, что бы то
is unlikely to change things on the front
ни
lines.
было сегодня на передовой. Мы идем вперед.
We're moving forward, and they
И они
understand
понимают, что они ничем нас не могут
that they can stop us by any means. That is such nonsensical bullshit.
остановить. А вот разговоры,
Regardless of what someone wants,
там, скажем, как
I want to voice this about certain
бы
statements.
кому-то не хотелось, вот хочу озвучить. Вот
2 billion. How am I supposed to treat this person seriously if he actually said that 2 billion Ukrainians died? Like Trump's speech where he said he is planning,
скажем, та же самая речь Трампа, где он говорит, что он планирует влить там
to pour 1 trillion into the army and
1
weapons.
триллион долларов, скажем, в армию, вооружение
Of the American forces.
американских, как говорится, сил. Вопрос встает,
I have a question. What does this signify?
о чем это говорит? Опять подготовка к воровству.
Once again, it signifies, well, it could signify a number of different things unrelated to Russia. And
Новых, как
they're getting ready to steal trillions of dollars.
говорится, триллионов долларов. Опять подготовка.
Once again, they're getting ready for war. That is a really stupid conclusion, and I have no clue why that would be the first thing that would come to your mind.
К войне, и все то, что
It's called deterrence, you idiot. But, you know,
до сих пор нам
all we've been told about their desire for peace
рассказывалось о каком-то желании мира, это только была занавеска
was just a curtain.
для того, чтобы за нею
That is such projection that I cannot even. So that behind it, they can get ready for war with us. Ah, yes. Because the United States is really not ready for a conventional war with Russia if it gets really. This guy thinks that the United States needs to pour an additional $1 trillion to be able to match Russia in a conventional war. Okay, that is not delusional at all. There's no delusion going on here.
готовится опять же к войне с нами. Поэтому мы должны
We should understand all of these intricacies and realities. Yes, there's so much intricacies in what this guy is saying. Incredible, incredibly nuanced guy. 2 billion Ukrainians died and tomahawks will not bring them back. There's no bringing back the 2 billion Ukrainians that have been killed. You cannot do it.
должны осознавать все эти тонкости реалий и делать то, что
And do what we have to do.
должны сделать мы.
What do you have to do?
Вот и все. Победить.
That's it. We will win.
Я так думаю, что
About discussions.
разговор о том, что эта война должна
This war should end by the end of this year.
завершиться
There is no way this war will end by the end of this year. There's just no way.
до конца этого года.
There is just no way for this war to end by the end of this year. I'm already saying that.
Может, для
I think it may end for the Ukrainian junta.
украинской хунты как раз она
What the fuck is he talking about even?
и завершится в конечном
By the end of this
итоге
year.
до конца этого года. То есть
In our favor, with our
в нашу
victory.
пользу, нашей
Yeah, good luck. Good luck with that. That is delusional.
победой. Хотя
Still, this won't give us a chance to
это
relax.
абсолютно нам не даст возможности успокоиться, потому что с нами
Because our enemies will be fighting against
будут
us,
воевать. Опять же, наши враги,
attempting to put us on our knees,
пытаясь нас, как говорится, поставить на колени. Мы же не привыкли
unlike some of our enemies.
жить на коленях, как
We aren't used to living on our knees. Is that so?
некоторые наши враги.
Is that so?
И вряд ли нас кто-то этому научит и заставит. Поэтому
It's unlikely they will be
наши
able to.
враги. И вряд ли нас кто-то этому научит
It's unlikely that that someone could
и
teach us.
заставит. Поэтому
Yeah, Russians don't learn. That's true.
будем
Or force us to do so.
воевать.
Therefore, we'll be waging war. Yeah, this war has been clearly started because Ukraine wanted to put Russia on its knees. Yes, of course. That makes perfect sense, and it's totally not insane rambling. Makes perfect sense. My goodness. Oh,
Тярончик, к зимнему
Apti Aronovich, are the troops ready
сезону, к холодам, личный состав готов,
for the winter season, for the cold weather?
обуты, одеты, согреты.
Absolutely everybody ready, everybody good, we will win. Do they have clothes, shoes, the means to keep warm? Once again, I will repeat, I will go to the speeches of Vladimir Vladimirovich by some people whom I don't respect, like Trump.
Я возвращаюсь к речи некоторых людей, которых, в принципе, я не уважаю, к речи Трампа, значит, где он говорит,
In his speech, Trump said our economy is in tatters.
что мы уже чуть ли не опять экономика наша порвана, мы там уже готовы,
And we are ready to surrender by raising our paws.
как говорится, чуть ли не...
He actually did not say that. I have no clue. I would. Can I get a quote on that? I know Trump says many crazy things, but can I actually get a quote on that? On him saying that Russia is ready to give up raising its paws.
Я не знаю, уже сдаться, поднял лапки. Я могу гарантировать,
I can guarantee that at
что
present,
наши подразделения на сегодняшний
our divisions are provided with all that we need.
день обеспечены всем, что нам
On the front
необходимо
lines,
на передовой, и теплые формы.
they have warm uniforms, shoes, and all that they need. I want data on that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that to be the case. Maya Atkinson, hey Lucy, hello, hello. Hello, Maya. Brain break when conscription says, wait, 25, have I been raided by somebody? Hello, oh my gosh. Conscription is getting closer and closer to affecting the middle class, that is true. Random Spooky Girl 3PO says, whenever the war ends, there's going to be years of work across the board to undo the damage, and earlier and just means it starts sooner. Well, thank you. Thank you for the raid. Thank you for helping me become a small streamer from a micro streamer. Thank you very much. I'm always very... Should I introduce myself? Lucy Hazel, political streamer, trans streamer, biggest Polish trans streamer. I do history, politics. I cover the war in Ukraine. I'm in Ukraine right now. I'm in Kyiv. I do work here as a journalist. I cover the topic of kidnapped children. I'm actually going to be soon doing a new interview with mental health specialists that do rehabilitation with rescued children. So I'm going to be tackling the topic of the militarization of children and children being abused. So that's going to be a thing. And I'm going to turn it into video material and written articles. I also do gaming, and I also do languages occasionally. So I'm hoping some of you will decide to maybe stay and subscribe and become viewers. I hope I have gained a few viewers. Thank you very much. All right, let's continue watching this. I don't envy any of them their job. That's far above my ability to cope with. Yeah? Well, you know. So yes. Luckily, and I've been ill this week. Luckily, there's not been super many bombings this week, but there's been a pretty big one, significant one. There's been missiles flying overhead. But tonight's been very tonight's been relatively calm. No drones or no missiles tonight. Alright, let's continue watching the video. And then we're gonna cover a different topic. I've got a topic prepared. I've got an American topic prepared by someone for me. About a mega church.
И обувью, и всем, чем
Yeah, they got a I need data on the uniform thing. The uniform claim seems very suspect to me.
необходимо. То есть в этом плане, наверное,
In this sense,
российская армия
the Russian army is perhaps the most combat ready. Oh, that is such
сегодня
hope.
так же, как и самая боеспособная, точно так же и самая...
And the most equipped in every way. Russia that needs to dip deeper into its old USSR stockpiles, that needs to refurbish older and older armored vehicles, that's running out of tanks. Yes, Russia is the most equipped army ever in every single way. That is such a delusional statement from a general, no less. That is a statement made by a general. I just cannot believe that. I cannot believe that a general will make such a statement of all people. But, you know, it is what it is. We have some really interesting generals.
самая обеспеченная во всех форматах. Да, есть много чего.
Yes, we're lacking many weapons and equipment. What? But you just said the Russian army was the most equipped and combat ready in the world. And now you're saying that the Russian army is lacking a lot of weapons and equipment. Guess what? The US army is not lacking many weapons and equipment.
Из вооружения, оснащения, чего нам где-то не хватает.
The US has thousands of tanks. Many thousands of tanks, unlike Russia. But there will always be not enough of it. That is such cope. That is such a sad statement. Begwen says, doublespeak is part of Russian culture. Not an insult, just fact. Well, yeah. Unfortunate. The Ruski Mir is real.
Хватает всегда, потому что сколько бы мы чего...
Regardless of how much we produce, which you're struggling with producing. Sanctions, you might be able to overcome some of the sanctions, but the sanctions are working and you are actually struggling with production. That is why a lot of your shells, when it comes to, things like the artillery shells, that's why you have to be given them by North Korea.
Не производили, оно каждый день расходуется. Но в то же
It's being spent every day.
время по самому
At the same time, as far as equipment and food,
питанию, мне кажется...
I don't think any of our divisions have any issues. That is a blatant lie. That is a blatant lie. I know that Russia is not just hurting from a lack of first-class equipment. Russia is also actually hurting from lack of trained personnel.
У нас уже вопросов нету ни в одних подразделениях, таких глобальных
As a whole.
имеется в виду. Да, некоторые...
There are always problematic nuances and intricacies. Ah, yes, there we go. There we go. Problematic nuances and intricacies. I'm curious as to what North Korea is getting out of this technology. A lot of technological advancement. They're getting money, of course. They're getting out of a ditch. Technological info is one thing that they're getting from Russia. They're able to advance. I'm thinking food and also experience for the soldiers. That is not to be underestimated. That the North Korean soldiers are getting real life experience in the field, because let us not forget that North Korea has not just sent equipment but also soldiers to fight in the war. Nuances and intricacies are nice little weasel words, that is true. So yeah, actually North Korea is getting quite a lot out of this arrangement. North Korea is eating well, so to speak.
Проблемные нюансы, тонкости, они есть везде и всегда.
Спасибо вам огромное.
Thank you very much. It has been a
Герой
great pleasure.
России.
The hero of Russia, Apti Aronovich Alaudinov,
Петрович Алаудинов,
the hero of Russia from the Chechen Republic,
генерал-лейтенант, командир
Lieutenant General,
Ахмат,
commander of the Akhmat
с
Special
нами на прямой
Forces,
связи из зоны
were live on air with us. Was live on air with
проведения
us
специальной военной
from the zone of the special military operation, because they still don't call it a war, because of course they will not call it a war.
операции.
And let me recap. This lieutenant general has claimed that 2 billion Ukrainians have died. 2 billion Ukrainians. That's a lot more than a total population of Ukraine. 2 billion Ukrainians. And that the Tomahawk missiles will not bring them back. The US might give Ukraine Tomahawk missiles, but it won't bring back the 2 billion dead Ukrainians. Oh, my goodness. What a sad reality we live in. Let's see the comments. Some can count, but confirms that it's very likely Russia has lost 2 million. 2 billion? The Russian media is always a crazy sight to behold. Billion, someone from India that their mantle of most populous country has been served by a single cemetery. That is true. A single mass grave filled to the brim with 2 billion Ukrainians. All right, let's talk about mega churches for a bit. Let us talk of mega churches. Let me see. That is such an interesting topic to me because mega churches are not a thing that exists in Poland. It's just not a thing in this country. And they're apparently quite a big thing in the US. Mega church pastor and ex-Trump advisor pleads guilty to child sexual abuse. It's just in the light of the whole Epstein files thing. Can't wait for Trump to repeat those talking points. Oh yeah. I cannot wait for Trump to say that 2 billion Ukrainians have died. Also, I've been to a mega church once, and my colored red flags were going off so hard I had to get out. I mean, a mega church is a big stadium filled with people. It's like this weird gathering of people, like it's a concert, but it's all super rich pastors that flaunt their wealth and speak to a whole crowd of crazed people. It's very strange. It's a really strange phenomenon, and I can only assume that it's made possible because in the US, fanfare and spectacle are really popular. But there's has to be more than that, just that. But listen, Trump's ex-advisor turns out to be a child predator. Who would have known? Who would have known that someone close to Trump would turn out to be a child abuser? I would have never guessed that was the case. Would you have? Would any of you have guessed that? I would never. Robert Morris to serve only 6 months in county jail after charged with 5 counts of lewd or indecent acts with child. 6 months? County jail? Oh, justice. Justice has been served. if you're abused children and you're close to Trump, I guess you're gonna get away with 6 months in jail. That is interesting. That is so interesting. The founder and pastor of one of the largest mega churches in the US, Robert Morris, has pleaded guilty. He has pleaded guilty to sexually abusing a 12-year-old girl in Oklahoma in the 1980s. Guilty. Yeah, if you're wealthy, powerful, if you're on a mega church, and if you're close to Trump, then I guess child abuse is a no big deal. Bregwin says, yeah, and he will absolutely be forgiven by his congregation after he repents. It's all so disgusting. It is. I guess if you're just powerful enough and you have powerful enough friends and if you're part of the congregation, you're a good pastor, then child molestation is just a no biggie. It's no big deal, I guess. Usually judges give lesser sentences to men of God, because of how much of a pillar of the community they are. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Abusing 12-year-old girls, such a pillar of community, such a good example for the common folk. Isn't that right? Oh, we need more such pillars in our communities, I swear. The world would be such a better place if we had more Robert Morrises in it, doing God's work on earth. It would be so just, that's what we need. Morris, 64, pleaded guilty on Thursday in Osage County District Court on 5 criminal counts on lewd or indecent acts with a child. He was sentenced to 10 years in custody, but as part of a plea deal will serve only 6 months in county jail. And I guess then he will be just free to go and abuse more kids. Just brilliant. What is going to happen to him? Will he be excommunicated? Will he be thrown out of his mega church? What is going to happen to him? He will register as a sex offender and pay $250,000 in restitution. Wow. The disgraced pastor founded the Gateway Church in Southlake, Texas. Of course, it had to be Texas. He grew it into one of the top 10 largest mega churches in the US, with more than 25,000 visitors weekly. Yeah. That is a very depressing image. The person with there's this cult following, a literal cult following. I know that people usually, when they say a cult following, they mean it in the abstract, but this is literally a cult following of the guy. Mega church. Cindy Clemishire, 55, the woman who publicly identified herself as the victim of Morris's sexual abuse, was present in the courtroom as he pleaded guilty. In a prepared statement, she told him, "There's no such thing as consent from a 12-year-old child. We were never in an inappropriate relationship. I was not a young lady, but a child. You committed a crime against me." A young lady in an inappropriate relationship. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ Almighty. This is what powerful people close to Trump are like. Random Spooky Girl 3PO says, wouldn't you rather get molested by a righteous man who fears the Lord rather than an evil and godless atheist? Oh yeah, for sure. That is definitely my choice. Vladimir. Yo, Lucy has been raided. Where is your thank you and a proper suit? I'm ill, first of all. Okay, I am ill. Second of all, I did say thank you. Okay, I said thank you many times, like Zelensky. Melly says, evangelicals have a lot to say about the abuse by Catholic priests, but their pastors are just as bad. Yeah, that is what happens. Unfortunately, abuse gets covered up a lot in organized church structures. This is unfortunate, but you know what? I will say it. People, when it comes to power, power corrupts. And in a lot of cases, the more powerful people get, the more they're attempted to abuse that power. Also, in ways such as this, like the abuse of children. That is why people like, you know, organizers, leaders of mega churches, politicians are more prone to do stuff like that, in my opinion, because they are in a position of power and some people just like using that power. Some people just like being in a position of power over others, and there's not much more power than one can have over a child. That is the... Vladimir says, I hope everybody in the chat are having a good time reading news and stuff. True. Ragwin says, and in half of those states where child marriage is legal, there is no age limit. Yeah, I forgot. I almost forgot that there was a move to repeal child marriage, but the Republican side of the political spectrum has fought tooth and nail to prevent child marriage from ending, because it's just love. You love who you love, I guess, unless you're gay. In that case, you're a degenerate and you should be castrated. But if you want to marry a child, why not, if the child agrees, right? Damn. Yeah, they care about children. They care about children so much they want to marry them. But God forbid two men love one another. That's just an abomination against God. Oof, that's too much. Oh, and God forbid if you're trans. That's, oh gosh, oh no. That's even worse. That's the worst offense against God Almighty. God forbid if you're a combination of being a trans woman and being intimate with a man. That's oh God, I don't even know. I don't even know what kind of sinful, awful, degenerate stuff that is in the eyes of the God-fearing, child-married Republicans. These are the Antifa states, right? Yeah, the terrorist states. Melly says they care about children so much, says Maya Atkinson. Bragwin says, no, those are not Antifa states. Every time legislation is brought up to raise the age of consent for marriage, Republicans oppose it every time. That is true. That is true. Well, let's not forget that Antifa is now a terrorist organization. But also, let's not forget that trans people are domestic terrorists as well. So if I ever come to the United States, I'd be on a list immediately because of my trans ideology, which is an inherently terroristic ideology. Let's not forget about that little fact. That's one thing you can say about Jeffrey Epstein. He cared about children, says a random spooky girl 3PO. Right when a Utah politician even got the law changed to protect a relative of his from being prosecuted for grooming a 10-year-old. Jesus Christ, of course. Yeah, it's all happening as the Epstein files crap is ongoing. Let's put that into perspective. There's the whole Epstein thing ongoing. Still, relentlessly. He committed. Her sister Karen Black also read a statement saying, you pretended to be holy preaching from big pulpits. As you hid behind your facade, we've known you're nothing but a predator. Well, I think if he says his prayers 5 times, it should be fine. I think his believers in the mega church will find it in their hearts to find redemption for him. Morris resigned from the church last year after Clemishire went public. He had spent years trying to hold her abuser accountable. Oh, he quit the church to retire as a rich man after he spends 6 months in jail. Brilliant. That's just a traditional marriage. They're just thread cats. True. It is just tradition. The molestation began in 1982 when Morris, then 21, was a traveling evangelist. He stayed with Clemishire's family in their home, where he invited the child into his room. The abuse continued for the following 4 years. 4 years of abuse equals 6 months in prison, because that makes perfect sense. That is justice being served, I suppose. I wonder if Trump has made any comments on this. I wonder if you have heard any comments on this case from our Make America Great Again president. A leaked transcript of a phone call revealed that in 2005, Morris tried to bribe Clemishire into silence, telling her to put a price on it. Because, of course, I might have molested you, but have you considered that I might give you some money? Money that I got from my dear believers and followers, by the way. Yeah, that's right. Would you like to accept some of my megachurch money to stay silent about my sexual abuse of you when you were a child? Brilliant. That is... Who needs fiction when we have reality? Morris' conviction marks a remarkable fall for the pastor. At his peak, he authored several best-selling books, and his sermons were broadcasted around the world. So he was not just popular in the United States, in his megachurch. No, he was popular around the globe. Oh my God. Ah, Jesus Christ. The world's leaders, world speakers. He also became a spiritual advisor to Donald Trump. Well, you know what? If this guy was a spiritual advisor to Donald Trump, I will just say that explains a lot. That explains a lot. And, you know, the Epstein list, client list, I guess. Spiritual advisor. He joined the White House Spiritual Advisory Committee during the first Trump presidency and was part of a campaign to mobilize evangelical voters for him in last year's presidential campaign. He mobilized all the child abusers to vote for their president. Trump also visited Gateway Church in 2020, where he praised Morris and his senior team as great people with a great reputation. Oh, that's a quote. Oh my God, it's gonna be on the thumbnail for sure. Great people with great reputation. I love this. I'm gonna use this. I'm stealing this. Definitely now. There are a great people with a great reputation. Doesn't get any better than this, right? Reputation-wise. Oh yeah, I just molested a 12-year-old for 4 years. But then again, he got away with it, basically. 6 months in jail? Brilliant. Yeah, that is unfortunate reality of how people in power get away with abuse. And this is exactly why these sort of things should be talked about very, very loudly. I want to know if Trump said anything about this. I really want to know. I really want to know. Robert Morris left with Donald Trump on June 2020 in Dallas, Texas. Photograph Alex Brandon. This is Robert Morris. I want to know. Let's Google it. Let's Google and see if Trump has said anything about it. Trump, Dave Morris statement. This is Dave Morris, right? That's his name? Robert Morris. Sorry. I'm bad with names. Robert Morris. And I know. I can be forgiven. I think I can be forgiven for messing up the name. Robert Morris statement. Oh, a video of U.S. President Donald Trump praising Robert Morris has sparked widespread backlash online. I wanna hear this. I wanna hear him praise. This is from 1 year ago.
With a great reputation, I have to say that. Great reputation.
Online fury hits Trump over Morris friendship. I mean, yeah, Trump has some interesting friends. We cannot deny that.
Pastors Robert Morris and Steve Dullen, they're great people.
And we really know what this reputation was. A disgusting man. All of them are.
Great people with a great reputation, I have to say that. Great reputation.
Uh-oh.
Pastors Robert Morris and Steve Dullen, they're great people. Great people with a great reputation, I have to say.
Okay, it's just gonna be him saying this on the loop. We're gonna hear something new.
Great reputation. And Gateway Church, the team has been incredible in hosting us. And I'd now like to ask Pastor Morris and Bishop Jackson to lead us in prayer. Thank you.
Oh my God. That is so bad. Oh my goodness. Especially in light of what's going on with the Epstein files. That is so bad. I would like my spiritual advisor, Robert, to lead me in prayer, to guide me in my conscience and in my actions.
Thank you. Lord, we need you. We need you at this time in our country. And I thank you for our president. I thank you, Lord, for our leaders. I thank you, thank you, thank you. I know in the Bible that when something was emphasized, it was repeated. Holy, holy, holy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Lord, that we are about to bring tremendous progress to a problem that's been here for a long time.
Is it child abuse? Is that the problem? Is that the problem that's been plaguing the American nation?
And I thank you for this administration.
I wanna.
To a problem that's been
here. So maybe great person, quote unquote, is Trump code for fellow pedo. He said the same about Epstein. Need to go back and look at this other at all his other great people.
For a long time. And I thank you for this administration. And Lord, we pray your blessings and your guidance today on this meeting. In Jesus' name.
Oh my gosh. Oh. Please lead me, my spiritual advisor. Oh my gosh. Probably gonna go to hell? Maybe. Jeez. Oh. I mean, I don't know. I feel like Trump has gotten something out of this guidance. It just feels that way to me. His church's Dallas campus hosted Trump in 2020 for a discussion on race relations and economy. Oh boy.
People with a great reputation, I have to say that, great reputation. Pastors Robert Morris and
The Lord works in mysterious ways, in mysterious ways indeed, in ways that cannot be revealed even after years and years and years.
Steve Dolan, they're great people. Great people.
Okay, that's enough of that. We got the gist. Oh my gosh. But I'm not seeing any statements from Trump on his arrest. Well, well, well. Well, well, well. Trump faces backlash. No Truth Social, no brave Truth Social statements. I cannot find any. Let's try. Okay. No Truth Socials from Trump. No. Let's see. Trump, Robert Morris, Truth Social. No, he's quiet. Robert Morris' sentencing reaction and Trump's silence. Ooh, I guess it's pretty embarrassing. For mysterious acts of God's love. I wonder why Trump is so silent on this matter. It just makes me... mysterious. It's just so mysterious why Trump would be so silent on this matter. I don't know. It's just, Interesting. All right. Let me see how long we've been streaming. Because 2 hours. So in total, I've been streaming for, I don't know, about 6 hours today. So thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you for the raid. I'm going to end for now because I'm still quite ill. Probably can hear it in my voice, my raspy voice. If you've enjoyed the stream, then consider subscribing, tuning in more. I try to stream every day as much as I can. I'm probably gonna try to cover more topics today on stream. I'm hoping that I have gained a few viewers, a few fans, and I continue my mission to grow from a micro content creator to a small content creator. And I'm hoping that you'd help me on this journey. Bagwin says, my evangelical brother hangs on Trump's every word, and I know he would absolutely back up whatever this pastor did because he backed his own pastor when he was caught trying to propose to a 15-year-old. I mean, that is what happens when it can get really complicated. You can rock your worldview and it can get really difficult to get out of, After all, you've believed a person and you've trusted them for guidance, and then, oh, they're a pedo. Oh, well, crap, I guess. That rocks your world a little bit. You get into denial mode. So that can happen. Unfortunate as it is. People do tend to get into denial mode to protect their inner world. As much as, if that makes sense. All right, I will probably raid you into someone. I will raid you into... How about I raid you into... I'm not gonna review into food shops. Vegcom, there you go. Vegcom is a great content creator. Vegcom is a great content creator. Give Vegcom your love, please. Vegcom is a great content creator. All right, I'll see you today. We're gonna discuss more political topics. It's gonna be more serious because we're gonna be discussing Ukraine. It's gonna be a lot of things. Maybe we'll discuss some Polish politics as well. See you. Give Vegcom some love. Thank you very much.